Here's what attorney Jonathan Turley had to say about the Colorado court's decision. Roll tape.
Well, this court just handed partisans on both sides the ultimate tool to try to shortcut elections. And it's very, very dangerous. I mean, this country is a powder keg, and this court is just throwing matches at it. And I think that it's a real mistake, but I think that they're wrong on the law.
Karl Rove joins me now. Karl, I'm sure you know Jonathan is a Democrat. You do not have to be a Trump fan to deplore this decision, do you?
No. This comes from the 14th Amendment, which was passed by Congress in 1866, passed by the states in 1868. And in 1874, the Democrats took control of the House of Representatives for the first time in 18 years, and they did so by picking up 51 seats that were occupied by former Confederates. Right. We're talking about men who had fought during the Civil War as either members of the Confederate military or as members of the Confederate government, and yet they were admitted to the United States Congress and gave the Democrats a 180 to 103 margin. And among them was the former vice president of the Confederacy, Alexander Stephens of Georgia. I mean, talk about insurrectionists, and yet the 14th Amendment was not applied to them.
Yeah, and they were real. Nobody was debating whether they were insurrectionists or not. I mean, that wasn't even a part of the debate, but they got it. And it's the political weaponization of our legal system that really scares the heck out of me. I used to cover Latin America for 12 years. I saw it happen all the time. The first step that dictators made before they went to a one-party system was to politicize the legal system to get rid of their candidates in an election. That's always the first thing they do. I'm not suggesting that that's going to happen here, but there are precedents for it.
Yeah, look, the ironies in this are amazing. Remember this book, Profiles in Courage by John F. Kennedy? Yeah, and won the Pulitzer Prize. Remember that one of the people that he picked out as an American political leader who was a profile in courage was Lucius G.C. Lamar of Mississippi, who had helped lead Mississippi out of the Union, and Kennedy picked him out because he cast a deciding vote against the passage of a free silver measure in 1878 as a Mississippi senator. He served as a member of Congress before the Civil War, a member of Congress, a member of the Senate after the Civil War, Secretary of the Interior, and Associate Justice of the Supreme Court. And yet, during the Civil War, he was a member of the Confederate military and the Confederate ambassador to Russia. And yet, this man is picked out by John Kennedy as one of the 12 Americans that he felt was a profile in political courage. I mean, where are we as a country? I mean, you don't have to be a fan of Donald Trump to think this stinks.
Right. By the way, that's the best political reference I've ever heard you pull in my life. Karl, wonderful stuff. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you being here.